First of all, when we're doing the underwriting, obviously a big part of it, because you're getting evaluation, is how tight their bookkeeping is, right? The auditing. They'll get like, are the financial statements that they're giving you, are they certified by a CPA? Are they audited financial statements? How tight are they? And then going into the property level, there's a lot of software programs that run hotels that deliver information. There's several big ones. You can go in there and how that information was extrapolated. It went into the profit and loss statement, went into into the various financial statements, tells you a lot about the integrity of their financial bookkeeping and how serious you're going to have to get. So though that's the number one source of red flags for us, where there's underreporting or overreporting or sloppy reporting or categories that are mixed up. And so we look very carefully at that. And then going to the hotel itself, part of the underwriting process, walking the physical site, it's a weird thing for someone who's been an attorney for 3 decades, like climbing through boiler rooms sometimes on walkthroughs to look at the physical integrity of the heaters, and just, you have to get eyes on the site, right? And just see what, that raises a lot of questions sometimes about what needs to be done. Another red flag, another thing we look at very carefully is the property improvement plan. It's called a PIP. I don't know if we're familiar in the industry, but brand standards, when you have a franchise agreement, you're agreeing to maintain the brand on certain schedules, 3, 5, 7, and 14-year schedules. And so there's always a cycle. When do I have to replace all the hard goods, soft goods, case goods, things like that? When does the refresh has to be done? And every time you buy a hotel, there's always a change of ownership PIP. So you're negotiating with the brand what has to be done right now when I purchase, because this is their one opportunity for the brand entering into a franchise agreement to update the brand. And no one wants to pay that money, but everyone understands how important it is for the end user to know when they go to a Marriott, if they go to a Spring Hill Suites, or they go to a Residence Inn, they're going to get a certain quality, a certain level of updating in that product. It can't be all over the board. And so the brand protects themselves through these property improvement plans. And so that's where a lot of hidden costs can be. That's going to tell you a lot. That's going to lead into valuation. So we look at that very carefully. But as far as contracts go, we look at vendors, right? We look at, are there critical vendors that we can't do without? If so, what do the agreements look like? Are they assignable? Are they assumable? Who are we dealing with? So we just go through every one of those things. And we typically, like, just to create a nice break between liability, it is standard operating protocol. And I think for most people in the industry is, when we take over a hotel, we're going to fire every single person that works there and then rehire them, right? They're going to be hired they're going to work for us. So there's no continuing liability. There's no ERISA issues. There's nothing like that where we have ongoing obligations to, pay out or handle, different wage and labor things. And so we don't fire them. They're fired by the company that's selling to us. And then we will usually rehire all of them. Sometimes they're not everyone. What other red flags are there? We like to get on top of insurance very early. We like to see their all their runs going back, any claims that have been made, to get a sense of what the renewal will look like when they renew their insurance. Look at what the costing is. We like to get out there. That's, in fact, one of the very first things our insurance partner says: get me this as part of your, like, at the LOI stage, your due diligence. I want to get on top of insurance right now, because that can make or break a deal. If you can't get insurance, or it's going to be very expensive, maybe much more expensive, because certain markets have changed dramatically with wildfires in California, with flooding around the coast area. There are certain areas that entire industries have pulled out of. They're not even insuring at all. And so you could be looking at someone's, profit and loss in their expense statement, and they can be paying so much that there is for insurance, but that's gonna time out as soon as they sell. You're gonna have to get a new insurance product, and it could be 3 times as expensive. And so you need to know those things. That can be a red flag on the overall return profile and what it's going to cost. It goes right to the bottom line. In the negotiation with the brand, when there's a property that's brand flagged and it's subject to a franchise agreement, and there's a new person coming in to purchase, we start that relationship right away. We reach out to the brand and we get the information. They'll tell us. There's full transparency. Even if the seller didn't want to tell us where it's at, the brand will tell us where it's at, because we're going to be putting in an application for a franchise agreement. And so they give us a franchise disclosure document, an FDD, and it tells us everything about that particular hotel. And they give us copies of where it's at, where it's on in its current property improvement cycle, and then what would be required of us. And that becomes a point of negotiation. And so part of our walkthrough is we're armed with that, and we get to look at the physical conditions at the property. And they have by the way, the brand does regular both announced and unannounced inspections of their folks, and they get a rating system, and they can lose their franchise if they're not maintaining a certain level. And so there's pretty tight information, but we get that information. We get it from the brand itself, the franchise disclosure agreement, and the other documents. And then we compare what's going on and see if there's anything. And part of our due diligence is we request information from them, and it becomes part of their warranties. In the purchase and sale agreement, as you know, there's a whole section. There's covenants and warranties. And we make sure that some of those warranties will actually survive the closing of the acquisition for a period of time, and that's always subject to negotiation. No one wants that to continue forever. A buyer would love it to continue indefinitely, to have those warranties, be there. And but we negotiate that, and so, but it's something that we look at, because it can be very expensive, and to see where it's at, and it helps drive the price. And people know that. Brokers know that. It's one of the things they'll talk about right away. Here's where we're at in the property improvement plan. They know everyone who's sophisticated who's buying a hotel. That's one of their very first questions: where we are in the PIP, and that's something that's discussed, and it affects the price. If they spend all the money and do it, they're going to expect a higher price. If they just went through a refresh or just went through their cycle, then of course that's the selling point. You guys won't have to do anything for 7 years. So it's a great purchase, pitch. And if it's coming up, it's due next year, that's going to, and they actually, usually good brokers will get an estimate of how much it's going to cost per key. It's going to be, $15,000 per key to comply with the PIP. So you factor in that, and what should that come off the price? Because it's going to have to, those are monies that are going to have to be expended. And sometimes the brand, knowing that's coming up, might even require you to put a little extra money into the FF&E reserves in order to make sure it gets seen through. Or the bank, the lender, typically will know that, because in their underwriting, they'll say, you have a PIP coming up in a year. It's going to cost X amount of dollars. How's that accounted for in your projections and in your pro forma? And so they might require, as a condition of their financing package, that you put monies in there. So this is all very important, right? What the capital improvements are going to be immediately and over the next few years. So